In episode 9, Joe is trying to figure out who exactly killed Delilah. He doesn't think it was him, but he feels like he owes it to her to find out if it was. He's trying to retrace his steps, but there's so much time that's not accounted for. He tries to get in touch with 40, but he's not answering his phone calls. He also tries to put Ellie's mind at ease by texting her through Delilah's phone, but he ends up dropping it and breaking it. And then he starts thinking about possible suspects that could have done that aren't him. And the real Will Biddleheim pops into his head because he's the only other person that knows about that cage, and maybe he came back. And the real Will sent him a postcard with his phone number, so when he calls it up, he sees Gigi and he sees Will and he realizes he didn't do it. But the real Will can see that something's not right with Joe and asks what's wrong. And Joe doesn't exactly describe the situation, but describes the situation enough where Will figures it out. There's a dead body in your cage and you don't know if you did it or not. Will tells him that he does believe that Joe is a good person, but deep down, Joe is the only person that knows if he's capable of that or not. So Joe continues to think and heads home and meets Love at his apartment. And while they're discussing their phone call from the night before, Ellie shows up looking for her sister. Of course, no one's seen her. And Ellie's really concerned because she's been gone for so long, and on top of it, she received a death threat from a Henderson fan after that story went public. So Love tries to take her mind off things and asks her if she wants to go get food as Joe cleans himself up from the night before. And while getting dressed, he gets a flashback from the night before at a Novern where the manager was beating him thinking he was robbing the place. So he goes to leave for a Novern, but he runs into Delilah's cop friend Fincher. And Fincher asks, hey, have you seen Delilah? But Joe plays it off, no, I haven't, it's really weird. But he gives Fincher the death threat and tells him how concerned he is about her safety because her sister hasn't seen her either. Right as he's about to leave, he says, by the way, she broke things off with me, so I really think she likes you, man. So he arrives at a Novern and the manager lets him know what happened the night before and lets him know how messed up he was and lets him know the time he arrived. But then he says, by the way, just because you're with 40 doesn't mean you don't have to pay for that stuff. And Joe is surprised to hear that he was with 40 because 40 could very well be his alibi. So Joe heads over to 40's place since he can't get a hold of him, and he texts Love that he's doing so. And Love is cooking with Ellie, and Ellie is still very concerned about her sister because her sister is the only real person she has. Her dad died when she was younger and she doesn't get along with her mother and abandoned her to go live with Delilah. And Joe is trying to figure out who killed Delilah, but when he knocks on 40's door, his mom answers. His mom lets him know, hey, I know that 40 told you about our family secret. Just to let you know, we are a close-knit family and all your secrets are safe with us. But Joe doesn't take it as a reassuring statement. He kind of takes it as a threat. And then he's wondering, what exactly did I tell 40 last night? And then he starts to remember little bits and pieces and wonders, oh my God, what if 40 did it? At this point, 40 shows up and he starts asking, hey, where did we go after a Novern? But 40's being skittish about giving details. Joe can tell he's lying. It doesn't take much, though, for 40 to finally come clean and say, you know, this is all your fault. If you didn't call Delilah for a booty call, I wouldn't have had to call Candace for one. And through that, he remembers that 40 dropped him off at the storage facility and then went to go hook up with Candace. And 40 gave him a rose to give to Delilah that was found next to her body in the cage. So it's very possible that Joe could have just added to his body count. But he suddenly gets a phone call from Love who says, you gotta come back because Ellie is losing her shit. And when he gets there, she is indeed losing her shit. Because it's finally hitting her that something probably happened to Delilah. Delilah's never left Ellie alone this long, but the real issue for Ellie is, why don't people want to be with me? What's wrong with me? And Joe comforts her by saying, nothing's wrong with you. Don't ever think that. And while Love is watching this go down thinking it's a beautiful moment, Joe is staring back at her thinking, I could have very well killed her sister. After he calms Ellie down, he heads back to the storage facility to see if he can find any clues and figure this thing out. While he does that, Candace shows up at 40's praising his script, but 40 doesn't want her there. 40 says, what happened last night was a mistake, and you truly are crazy, and if it wasn't for the fact that Joe called Delilah for a booty call, I never would have called you. Candace is just amazed that he called Delilah the building manager and is now worried for her safety. The two get into a fight with Candace saying, you idiot, you cracked this thing. Joe is the boyfriend. Joe Goldberg killed Beck. And I'm trying to protect you and your family from a killer. But 40 is just brushing it off, not believing a word she's saying, just figuring that she's crazy. Candace storms out and says, well, when he kills your sister, don't come running to me. At this point, Candace is very frustrated and goes to the liquor store. And as she's sitting there drinking, she rewatches the video that 40 sent her from the night before. And sure enough, in the background, you can see the storage facility and you can see Joe. So Candace immediately heads over to that storage facility and catches Joe in the cage with Delilah's dead body and pepper sprays him. She grabs his phone and locks him in there and texts Love Quinn the address and says, I need you here now, from his cell phone. And Candace thinks she finally has the proof she needed. But when Love shows up, she thinks this was Candace's doing. She thinks she's nuts. She demands that Candace set him free, but Joe's had time to think about this and figures, you know what, this is what I deserve. And to both of their surprise, he comes clean about everything. He says, Candace is right. I killed Henderson. I killed Beck. I tried to kill her. I clearly killed Delilah. And this is the first time Joe is really admitting guilt, because this all stems from his childhood, where the first time he killed somebody was his father at the age of 9. And when he did so, his mother said, "You're not a bad person. You were protecting me. It was an accident." And that's exactly what he tells himself every time he murders somebody, is that he was protecting them. But now he's finally coming clean about it. And his admission forces Love to run out of the storage facility. Candace runs after her, and now it's just Joe alone in the cage. And he finds that spare key that he hid in the cage just in case of emergencies, but he actually throws it out of one of the air holes. At this point, Joe feels like he deserves to get caught. Candace at this point is caught up to Love, and she's trying to console her as she's throwing up, but Love turns around and slashes her throat. She heads back to the cage, and she stares at Joe, picking up the key, and Joe says, "What did you do? Where's Candace?" And she just looks at him and says, "I took care of it." Thank you for watching this recap. If you do not see the next one up in the corner right there on the end screen, don't worry, it'll be up shortly. Please consider following the channel. That'd be cool. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, and if you don't, there's a thumbs down button for a reason.